everyone, Sara Naumann for Clearsnap, and today we're embossing with art screens. This embossing technique is a fast and easy way to add texture and sparkle to your cards. You can see on the background of my card this beautiful glimmery gold and that pretty green. Well, those have been done with a stencil, pigment ink, and embossing powder. So the supplies that I've used are, of course, I used the art screen stencil from Clearsnap, and this is the Groovy design. I'm also using a pigment ink. This is the Ann Butler Colorbox Crafters in Limelight, and I need to have my embossing powder, and this is the Gold Sparkle. So to do the technique, which is super easy, I'm just going to start with a piece of white matte cardstock, and I've got it up onto a piece of scrap paper. Then I'm going to take my stencil, and I like to go ahead and tack it down with a little bit of either washi tape or either stencil tape or masking tape, just something to hold that down while I'm applying the ink. Again, I'm working with the Limelight ink, and I'm also using a color blender, and it's got a refill pad on here, and that's what I'm going to use to apply my color directly onto the paper, working through the stencil. Now, this is why you want to have a pigment ink pad rather than, say, a solvent-based ink pad or a dye ink pad, because you want something that's going to stay wet long enough to take that embossing powder. So you definitely want to have a pigment ink on here, and this is perfect for this technique. Again, you want to use a blender, the color blender, rather than simply squashing the ink pad through the stencil. That tends to get too much ink, and you'll end up with the ink seeping underneath the design, and it ends up being a bit more messy than you probably wanted it to be. Okay, so once you have your ink all the way through your stencil, then you can go ahead and pull off that tape and remove your paper. So you'll notice on that cardstock that this is still wet. You can see the shine of that. Let me move this out of the way, and I'm going to bring in another piece of scrap paper. This one is folded in the center. So then that way, when I bring in my embossing powder, and again, this is using the Gold Sparkle, I can just sprinkle this on here without worrying about wasting any of it. I'm not covering the entire piece. I'm just getting some spot areas of that beautiful gold on there. So I'm not coloring the entire thing, but leaving some of that green to show. Now what I would do is, of course, simply use this as a funnel to get my embossing powder back into the jar so you don't waste any of it. When I've got that all heat set, and that only takes a couple of minutes with a heat tool, then I will have a beautiful sparkly background like this. I used a similar technique to stamp this butterfly from hot off the press. I used that Limelight ink and then added a bit of the embossing powder in certain areas on that butterfly to create the embossed design. So this is how you can do embossing with art screens. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest from Clearsnap. You can also come and visit us over at clearsnap.com. We'd love to see you there. Thanks again for watching.